Yo, Mr. EdCamp, Chris Clough. What's going on?
It's funny, the little sketch I did here, I put Dakota. Is it episode 25 we're at now?
It's episode 25, and I have to say that your sketches of my beard is just like boom, baby. It's fantastic. I appreciate that.
I'm finding there are a lot of ways they're sort of coming off almost Lego-like. And I find that my drawing, because there's shape, right? You got shape to the beard, but I feel like I'm just blocking it out. I'm like, it's sort of like this Lego snap-on thing, which I know that ain't the truth. But episode 25, so I'm starting off with like the little, it's decoded at night.
Oh, nice.
The little moon, right? Because we've had a couple of these episodes where it's just like, let's fit it into life. We're not let life tell us how this is gonna play out. And yeah, so Saturday night, getting a combo in.
It's crazy because it's just weird. Like I woke up this morning, I did my stuff, and even my kids were like, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Oh, I'm not podcasting this morning. I'm going to do it tonight." And they're like, "Why?" Like everything was just backwards, right? So, I mean, it's kind of cool. We both are available at the moment, so it's good to go, right? But yeah, so I want to do something with the EdCamp on-ramp,
Okay.
but I'm not really sure what. So I guess I want to say one more thing about the beard. The beard, I love the fact that you differentiate between your baby beard, that's what I'm going to call it, and my mature beard. It's just funny how the picture, I wish I had one with me. It's just funny. The headphones are on and you got this block beard. I kind of look like Moses. Then there's you with your glasses and the little like, I don't even know if you give yourself actual hair. It's just stubble or something.
Yeah.
It's just funny. It's funny. I don't know. I appreciate it. Thank you. And tonight the on-ramp was related to EdCamp.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool.
Yep.
Anyway, it's good to chill and to be able to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking to here's what we can do with the on-ramp. I think we can just play around with the what it's like to take a Saturday out for professional development. So at the heart of it, I'm still a believer. I still every once in a while like to kind of pop up at weekend. It's not training. It's almost like you don't want to even call it PD, right? Because you sit there in PD when you're in school and you say to yourself, this is not what I'm looking for. So it's almost like when you figure out that you want to spend a Saturday or an evening at a session, it's almost like you want to look for a different way to define it. So I don't know, weekend learning, everything starts to feel just too EDU, because you still want to make it about the weekend. Despite the fact you're all teachers or educators gathering at some random school in Ontario, it's a little, I like the festive part of it. And it's funny because I don't buy into the festive part often. Like I'm not the dude that's in front of the green screen putting on the big glasses and the bola. And if any of our any of our listeners are listening and they've gone to that weekend, that's there. You walk in right on the left, right beside the registration desk. There's gonna be some picture with you tweeting out some outrageous outfit and of you standing on a beach because they're green screening in behind you. Like I don't buy into that part, but it's funny. Sometimes that's the stuff that reminds you you're not in school. Yeah, I should buy into it more. I don't know. My brain just doesn't gravitate to that. It's like I want to get to the intense stuff. And just it's funny. So because I find that it's in the depth of the conversations or resource sharing or meeting new people that I don't know. I guess that creates the value for me to sort of take time away from my family, or heck, even to reschedule a decoded podcast, right? Like, what's the thing that's going to draw me away from this beautiful mess that you and I are working on? So,
well, it's funny you say that, because when you told me that the morning wasn't going to work, I didn't even think of professional learning. How bad's that?
Well,
so when I found out you were at EdCamp, or when I inferred that you were at EdCamp, I was like, why didn't that slacker tell me he was going to EdCamp? He just left me hanging like I assumed that you had family stuff or whatever. So I was saddened that you didn't share that you were going to be learning professionally this weekend.
I have mixed feelings about it. It's my shame that is weekend learning. Got to be honest. Sometimes I dig it. Sometimes I don't like to talk about it. It almost wasn't the weekend of Ed Camp very, very early this morning. And you've probably, we talked about that 7 a.m. phone call. So that's that professional moment where, oh, the day's just not going to go right. It's not going to go right. So how about the 3 a.m. kids' bathroom light being turned on? Yeah, you know it. Like, that's the one that you're in a deep sleep and you just hear the click and you're like, oh, it's okay. So here's the thing. On weekends, yay, like that's not so bad. Like, okay, cool. Let's have the sickness happen. But that's how the day started. And it's funny because there was a moment there where nothing was going to happen this weekend. And we're still out on what actually caused some sickness in one of my kids, but they kind of chilled and relaxed today, and it was kind of a pajama day around the house. So yeah, it was kind of, and it's funny because even with that sickness thing happening, and like I said, still a mystery, don't know what it was. There's still, like, tomorrow morning, my little dude's got something for beavers. This morning it was supposed to be like art school and play dates. Like, it's just, in some ways I'm happy that I don't know, the Ed Camp. Okay, so here's where we start with this. You asked me how the Ed Camp was. It was a little bit guilt ridden because I was sort of going away, not sort of playing a part and hanging out with my kid. But then I thought that was a commitment that sort of was something in the making for a few weeks now. I arrived there. I don't think I was in the right headspace initially, considering it was the weekend learning or whatever the heck we want to call it. And, when you asked me on the on-ramp, it wasn't good at first, but I think because I was resistant, I was holding back. I was like, should I be like, I was in Brampton. I was like, do I just drive back? Like, I sort of sat there. I was like, do I just drive back? Like, look, what, $20 in gas, whatever. Do I just drive back? But you know what? I sort of thought, okay, well, I'm here. You text in, you check in, everything's kind of okay at home. They're watching movies. I'm like, let's give it a go. So started a little bit not in the right headspace, but found a couple groups of people there that I thought, this is why I came. It was for these moments here. And funny enough, I met a dude in one of the sessions where we were talking about teacher wellness. And this guy, we had some amazing conversation just about, you know what? It's like, if we wanted a guest, the first guest on our Decoded podcast, talking about the challenges of being a dad, being a teacher, and sort of just looking the system in the eye and saying, I need more to help me out here, this dude's the guy. I ended up sort of in that sidebar conversation, sitting with him after a session on teacher wellness. I thought, this is like our long lost bro out there. That's kind of like the guy that's not having the moment like what you and I have to kind of pull it apart and figure it out. Seriously, no joke. Talking with this guy the whole time, I was mesmerized by the fact that the stuff that he was talking about was part of my concern as being a man, a dad, a teacher, and the career, the managing technology, the sort of, the struggles with the ELL and the on-ramp, but every single episode, dude, every single episode flowed through my mind from yours and my conversation. And I thought that also kind of gave it purpose too. That knocked me out of one of the sessions because I ended up missing it. We just sat, had a coffee, and chatted. But I thought, this is cool. This is why I'm here. I felt okay about not taking care of my sick kid. Go figure. That's what it came down to. That was the one that put a little bit of the salve on my soul. I'm like, okay, I'll be okay.
You'll have to drop. Well, I'm assuming this individual's on Twitter. If they are, no. Okay.
When we went down for lunch, the dude connected me. He's like, okay, this is my spouse. He turns to his spouse. He goes, take a photo of his card of like my name tag, and he said so that when we start up our Twitter account later, I can follow him. And of course, she turns to him. He's like, "You need to make your own Twitter account." He's like, "I know." He looks up at me. He goes, I know, right?" I'm like, "Dude, either way, I'm just happy to have a conversation with you." It was the first. What was interesting is that I think this was the first weekend, the first weekend event that I'd been to where I would say probably less than 50%. It's a big guess here, but I think less than 50% of participants had Twitter accounts. I would even say maybe less than 40%. And it's just a thing, right? I think the air we breathe, not everybody, not on some people's planets. It's not. So I was seeing people taking out their devices. People were writing notes. They were writing notes and checking email. They weren't actually, and sort of going around, my automatic, when I put one of those name tags on, I actually put my Twitter handle. So that's my name that if I get a chance to write it, it's at Chris J. Clough. It's embedded in the way that I sort of approach these things. Maybe I'll throw it on there or something, or I'll draw me with a terrible beard. So few Twitter handles. Even people looking at my name tag, like, because the @ sign at front of it, at Chris J. Clough. And I was waiting for them to say, "Is at your first name?" Because they're not recognizing that it's a Twitter handle. Seriously, I would say less than 50%. It felt like less than 50% had Twitter handles. And you realize the power of that. Like, all of a sudden you feel like you're just like, I can't share. Like how do we share then? Human, how do we share? Well, let's write some stuff down. So
what are your thoughts on why this you observe this? I know it's all anecdotal, but from your experience today, I mean, when I check out the hashtag on Twitter, I see good stuff. And you didn't even tweet much either.
There's a reason.
There's a reason. There's always a reason. Chris J. Clough, what's going on?
It was just the tech wasn't working. The tech wasn't working. I will say
the Wi-Fi wasn't working.
The permissions, for some reason, there was so the way that Peel works is that when there's events like this, they generate individual permissions with expiry dates. So I'm guessing they generated 300 or 400 individual IDs, and they would give you the sticker, and it had your login, and it was a method. You weren't actually logging into the Wi-Fi. It was like going to Starbucks. You had to log in, open up a browser, then log in there, agree to the terms, and it was so many steps. And for whatever reason, it worked okay on my laptop, but it didn't work well on my device. So there were a few people there that I knew. Some of them were staff. One of them was very gracious and said, "Hey, you could use my credentials. Just go ahead." And dude put it into my phone, and it worked out great. So yeah, it was the kindness of strangers that helped me out. Because I would say it wasn't until maybe 11 a.m. ish, 10 a.m. that I had, because I wasn't taking out my laptop. Like, I don't sit in these sessions with my laptop on my lap. It's just not. I like to kind of hang back on my chair. Like, I actually don't even take my device out much when I'm sitting in one of those discussion sessions, right? And then you hit the halls, you're like rapid fire, like, tweets out. So yeah, I couldn't access my tech, and I found it strange. I was aware that I wasn't using one of my tools for learning. So yeah, you're right. I didn't post much at all.
It's unfortunate, actually, because I was kind of hoping that I would have gotten some good stuff from you, because, well, you tweeted yesterday. I'll get to yesterday's tweet, one of your tweets yesterday that just blew my mind in terms of, like, providing me with a reminder about a particular perspective that is always helpful to me. But it's funny, as I'm going through here, the hashtag EdCamp905 tweets.
Yeah,
I see somebody tweeted. There's a photo of Mr. Stephen Hurley here at one of the sessions, and the look on his face is priceless. It's a true learning moment. I enjoy those. But I'm going through and I'm seeing all these tweets, and I see some people that I'm familiar with. It's just so cool to see them in learning action. But anyway, yesterday you tweeted a quote about I believe what Japanese people do with items that break and how they repair them.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just get it here because I want to make sure I do it justice. But I actually didn't actually read that tweet until last evening. So during the day, I saw that you had tweeted and you had tagged me, and I was like, okay, cool. I look forward to getting back to this. And I didn't get back to Twitter until later on, where I actually could see my notifications. Anyway, so you tweeted, going through. There it is. In Japan, broken objects are often repaired with gold. The flaw is seen as a unique piece of the object's history, which adds to its beauty. Consider this when you feel broken. And that grabbed a hold of me yesterday. That grabbed a hold of me. And I'm feeling broken lately with my work, right? Like I feel busted. And with certain people, I have no problem in sharing that brokenness. And with other people, I'm not interested. Now it's kind of ironic, right? Because we're talking on a podcast, so everything I say is being recorded. So
that did occur to me.
Yeah, like, I mean, so there are people who could watch this, or there are people who listen to it and never watch it, and that whatever. And there are people that are never going to see it, and that's cool too. But I'm comfortable enough to say that that's how kind of I've been feeling lately, with respect to my work, everything about my work. So reading that was like, yeah. How many times do I say to someone throughout a week, a day, whatever, that it's all good? Like, this is part of everything we do, where nobody comes out of this life unscathed. Nobody. And, competitive people would probably start showing you their broken marks and stuff to kind of see who's got more, right? Who's been busted up more, kind of thing, because that's in their nature. But I read that and I see it, and I just think to myself how true it is, right? None of us are unscathed. We are all broken at some point in some fashion related to something in our lives, relationships, work, school, whatever, right? Wow. And it's weird because I could have really used that. I could have really used that when you tweeted it out at it doesn't tell me the time now. It just says that you did it a day ago, but I think you did it earlier on in the day. 7:09 a.m. So I could have used that before I started my day yesterday, and I didn't get to it. I ended up responding to you at 7:08 p.m. So literally 12 hours later. So thanks for that, Chris. I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing the fact that you were meditating on that quote, and that you were wishing myself and a couple other people a good day.
It's I like you're welcome. You're welcome for sharing that. There's definitely, when you look to your social lists, there are individuals that I think that for me, there's posts and then there's posts. So there's the stuff that you feel like you're sharing because that's what you do, and then there's the sharing that you do that has higher, I don't want to say higher value, but there's an intentionality to it, in thinking like, this feels part of a conversation that I'm a big conversation that I'm in with individuals in the in your social feed. Sometimes it's the thing, instead of saying, hey, how you're doing, so you can have that, just that kind of powerful kind of greeting card from wherever you are in your Twitter feed. And it's just, I think in my mind, I really believe that the person in receiving it, they just kind of go, they get it. Like they just sort of look at it and they go, I get it. And I get the message. I get the sort of whatever the philosophy is behind it. So I think that this, that one in particular has been a part of an ongoing discussion that you and I have had, as in the same way the other people that I tagged in there's discussions around wellness and managing work and managing life, and even meditation. There's individuals in there that you and I don't often talk about. We talk about reflective practice, but we don't go too deep into some of the meta of meditation as well. But I have those relationships with other people. And it's cool when you find a post that harmonizes those individuals. And I would say that by me calling you out in it, in some ways, the individuals that are in there, I think you would enjoy connecting with on some level. Like there's no aliens in there that you would sort of look and go like, how the hell am I a part of this group? Like, I just don't get it. So it's to me, there's a cordiality to it of saying, I'm in this space with all of you. And I'd like to share this thing that I found, and for different reasons. That's just, I guess, my philosophy behind how I share. As far as the kintsugi, the philosophy, I really, really dig it. Like I came across that a few years ago, and it's funny. So I came across this 3 or 4 years ago in, it was brought to me through art. It was actually, as far as ceramics, it was brought to me as it was something that was mentioned in passing by one of my colleagues when he was talking about actually doing pottery in classroom. And this guy is deep. He's someone actually I spoke to on Chasing Squirrels, Andy McClure, and just a phenomenally fascinating guy, to where in that podcast in particular, I went and I did it live. I sat with him with just my iPhone, and at about the 50-minute mark, you hear me say, that's it, I'm done. Like I got to a point where I'm just like, I need time away from this conversation. It was just so, I have a lot of feels for the guy too. He's old school mentorship for me. One of the first people I really connected with at my first school. So he and I are deep in that sort of like, I don't know, feeling more than, let's say, collegial, like friends and family kind of a thing. So in getting to hear his story and talking with him, I was just like, that's it, dude, we got to stop, cut tape. I gotta go. We're good. But he was talking about that in reference to something else, but very much a part of his philosophy of life. And he draws in a lot of not only world religion, but also indigenous understanding of living with your whole self. And he's constantly living with your whole self and making sure that your whole self is accessible to you. And in some cases, whole self does involve recognizing that you have been broken, but healed. And in the healing, there's still a lesson to be learned. And coming across the idea of the kintsugi, and it's not in any way to take, like, you don't break something intentionally to do this. That's not the approach here. You are rescuing the beauty of the original by adding something to it. And, you could easily turn this into some lesson in class and saying, okay, we're going to bring in mugs and we're going to smash them and then put them back together. But I think you'd be losing the spirit of what's going on here. This is a resiliency and recovery type of a approach, and an honoring your lived experience. And it keeps popping up in my feed, and no one's sending it to me. It's just popping up in these random places, which is one of those message from the cloud, let's say. I love how it keeps reoccurring. So, and it's a fascination for me. I would love to try, and then just on a practical, I would actually love to try it. I would love to try doing this. My daughter loves art. And when I showed it to her, the philosophy of it, it wasn't lost on her, but to a 10-year-old mind, the idea, I'm okay that she doesn't quite get the idea of being broken in the metaphorical sort of mental wellness kind of a sense. She's got time to sort of come to understand that concept. But she did like the idea of making something that she perceives to be broken and potentially not whole into something beautiful. So who knows? Maybe we'll try it. The next dish we break before it gets thrown in the recycle, maybe we'll try making it beautiful again. We'll see.
I love it. And I, on a number of different levels, it reminds me of a time last year when my students, I hope there are none of my parents listening, but my students every year make, they do some artwork with pottery with a really cool lady named Nancy from a company called Pottery to Go. And she works out of Guelph. So for any educators out there that are close to Guelph, hit up Pottery to Go with Nancy Pounder. And she goes from school to school with plates or bowls or mugs, whatever you choose to do with your kids. And basically, she does like an art lesson with them where they design different artwork on their mug. And what I do is I call upon Nancy every year to do pottery work with my kids around Mother's Day. So basically at this time of the year, because I'm no artist, I don't have skills, and sometimes I don't even have an interest in art. So I need to bring people in to help me to, and Mother's Day is a big deal. And that's the primary teacher in me. I can't, for Mother's Day, Father's Day, things like that. Like as a teacher, I feel like it's my duty to make sure the students do something around that, because it's important to show our parents the love we have for them, and that they are part of the package, right? When these kids are with me, whatever. But anyway, so Mother's Day, she comes with pottery, and last year, one of my kids dropped her plate on the floor, and it broke into like 4 pieces. And it was one of those things where I was like, everybody stopped and kind of looked, and we're like, oh, if I could swear at work, I would have at that moment in time, because I was like, oh my God, this is horrible, total accident. Anyway, long story short, I wish that I had known of it. It's spelled Kintsugi, Kintsugi.
I think it's a hard G.
Kintsugi.
G.
Kintsugi.
I think so.
Okay, so we'll go with that until somebody corrects us. Kintsugi.
We're open. Yeah.
I wish I had known, and I wish I had because I would have loved to sit down with this student, talk to her about this, and done something around this to repair the plate in a way that would give it, I guess, that power, or that the specialness that comes with it, right? Like that, the whole story behind everything we did for that, for Mother's Day, is so big. And so to then acknowledge the fact that it was broken and that it was put back together in this way, I don't know. I just think it would have had a lot of power. I think it would have made the student feel better. I think the parent would have appreciated the whole thing. Anyway, long story short, Nancy was able to fix it for the girl, but said, like, you can never put this in the dishwasher or anything like that. It won't withstand that type of stress at this point. So cool though, man. So cool. And some of my best friends, the best people I know, have been broken and repaired. I know that sounds weird because everybody has, but it's that, and people, I mean, I don't expect people to walk around and to just, hey, my name is so-and-so, it's nice to meet you, let me tell you about my broken times, my failures, whatever. I don't expect that. I just think that when you get to know somebody and they let you in, it's such an honor to me. Like when people, there are times where I'll be talking to somebody at work and they'll tell me something personal, like as we're just chatting, and I look at them and I almost want to say, hey, do you know what you're doing here? because to me, this is a big deal. Like, you're about to tell me something about your life that we don't ever talk about because we just don't. Are you sure you want to do that? Then maybe that sounds strange. I don't know. I just think, whoa, put the brakes on. Like, do you know who you're talking to? Are you okay with letting me know something about you that I believe is like significant? I don't know, because I don't. I mean, I do, but I don't. I'm very careful because there are some people I don't want you to know about my broken parts or, you know, the things I don't want you to know. And I feel like this is really cool because I can talk about it here on the podcast, knowing people can hear it on the podcast, but it's different because I'm having a conversation with you about being dads, being partners, having jobs, working in education. Like, that's the context of all this, and I'm okay with that. But for me to stand in the hallway and talk to one of the staff members, they're not going to get this at that time. They're going to have to listen to the podcast to get a flavor for who I am, because here I'm okay to talk about it, some of it, but I'm not okay to talk about it when I'm standing in the hallway with a colleague.
Yeah, I've tend to push back in those moments. So just, you know, I'll riff off what you're talking about. I like to honor those moments too, where someone is about to say something or does say something that I believe is profound. And it strikes me as this isn't something that somebody says every day. I mean, and it's funny for me. I'm no longer surprised when people tell me things. I've had kind of a life where, for some reason, if I look at the number of things that have been shared with me, let's say human to human, face to face, I'm not a small talk guy. Like, I don't spend a lot of time. Like, I don't to a fault. I'm not the guy that asks you, how's your weekend? And just to put it, you know what I mean? I don't. Heck, I don't even often say, how was your summer? Like, considering that was a 2-month gap, like, I'm not that guy. I'm just not that guy to spend time doing that. But for some reason, I am the guy that has conversations about relationships, or has conversations about, what does it mean? What does, you know, it mean to be a man in world of education? Like, I find myself in these really bizarre, way out of my league kind of conversations, because people kind of share bits of themselves with me. And when they do that, I have a mindful moment where I realize that this could be a big risk for that person. This could be a first time that this was ever talked about. This could be an accident. Like, just somehow in the moment of conversation, a context has been set that it's safe to talk about things. So as you're sort of saying, hey, you know, easy, are you sure? Like, are you going to share this? I have a very similar response, but I tend to kind of just take it. Like, I'll have the conversation. And with random individuals, with people that I know, I'm going to blame my dad. This was very much, if it's in the genes, this comes from my father. And it was often observed that when my parents were in places, my mom was the person that was kind of flitting from conversation to conversation and just kind of keeping the big woo kind of party going. And then it's like, so I call myself Clough, and just forgive me, I also refer to my dad as Clough. So when Dad Clough, someone says, where's Clough? He's the one that's kind of like sitting over in the corner, and you say to yourself, holy crap, he sat down there 2 hours ago talking to that random person, and he's still talking with them. So I get that from him. And then afterwards, you know, he would say, yo, Pete, what was that all about? And he's like, I don't know. I just met them, and we just kind of sat and started talking. So I kind of dig that. I think if I wouldn't change it, I won't go back to try and find conversations just like, hey, how was your summer? How was your weekend? I know sometimes that gets me into trouble. People think I'm curt. But I think there's a whole lot of other people that go, really? You ever talk to the guy? And probably the individual that was calling me out as curt hasn't. It's just been a quick kind of interaction. And I think that tool, if you bring it to, my kids get frustrated by it. My daughter, I don't know if I shared with you, my daughter one time said, Daddy, you know Kylo Ren? And I'm like, yep, yeah, I know Kylo Ren. She said, sometimes when you're like talking to me and Jake and we're in trouble, you sound like Kylo Ren, like you're trying to get in our heads. I'm like, I don't mean to. I don't mean to, right? Like there's no Force Awakens here. It's just, but she's called me out on as well, just that sort of like curiosity to find out about stuff. But I extend that to my students as well. I think that's part of me working on becoming more empathetic and more compassionate, and making it decisive, as in I won't spend the time, hey, how was your weekend? Instead, I want to know more about how you're feeling, which isn't a normal coming back from weekend kind of a conversation. You don't have to come back after the weekend and say, hey, how you feeling? Right? It's almost like you need some sort of how's the weather on ramp. Me suggesting us to shorten the on ramp, as I'm thinking back now, is because I know I'm going to get to the depth of the conversation that I crave more, despite the fact our on ramp has become incredibly fun. I will say that. You've sold me on the necessity to get a little bit of that on ramp out. That was a ramble. You were correct. Kintsugi. It is a soft one. You were correct. I thought it was a hard one. So there it is. Using gold.
Kintsugi.
Yeah.
Every time I talk on this podcast, it's a ramble, man. So don't worry if you consider one or two of yours a ramble. I just ramble the whole time. Okay. So a couple of things you said really caught me. One of them, which I found myself laughing at the other day, is when I talk to some people, they must think there's something wrong with me because I'm so uncomfortable communicating with some people that they must, every time we talk, they must walk away thinking there's something odd about that guy. And it's really kind of neat to think about it from their perspective. I don't really want to, because I feel bad that I refuse to connect with people at particular times, depending on who they are, or the time of the day, or whatever. But there are some people, kind of brings a smile to my face at the moment, but there are some people that I'm telling you, they must think, like, if you met them somewhere and you're like, yeah, my buddy Roland, he works in Waterloo, and they're like, yeah, I work with him. That guy is whack. Like, he's not social. He won't look me in the eyes when he talks to me. Like, it's whack. Actually, before I started this ramble, which we're going to call episode 25 of the podcast, my wife said to me, we were in the kitchen, I was making something to eat, and she said something about me being on the spectrum, which there's nothing wrong with that. So people, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying to her, I said to her, what are you talking about? Just because I operate a certain way with certain things doesn't mean anything. I think sometimes we're too quick to just start throwing people onto the spectrum. But I mean, I could see, I'm reflecting now, like, as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking about some of the people that I've been talking to this week. And I'm glad that you're enjoying this, because I'm telling you, like,
I'm laughing because I've been accused of the exact same thing. So I think a midlife identification is just something to meditate on, bro. I'm not too, at this point, I have self-diagnosed this in myself. And I'm just like, okay, what does that get me? It doesn't get me anything. If it's the case, I'm not going to IPRC myself. I'm not going to pursue, the paperwork. But I kind of go, if that were the case, that would explain some stuff. It would explain some stuff. So
I have to say, okay. there are people that I interact with where I feel like I'm giving my all and they're not acknowledging, and it kills me. It kills me because I feel like they're wasting their time standing in front of me while I talk to them. And there have been times where I've said to people, okay, you like, I'm done talking now. You really need to go. Like, you can go now. And I'm trying to give them that out. Like, I see the way you're looking at me. And that's how I look at some people when I'm not interested either. So why are we doing this to each other right now? Why? Just go away. Like, you don't need to. It pisses me off when I'm in a social situation and I'm reading one of the people in the group are not interested in anything I'm putting down. They're behaving the same way I behave when I'm not interested in communicating with another person. But I can read it. So it's like, okay, thank you for your time. You can go now. Like, I'm giving you a natural out. And then when I have fun with it, I don't give the natural out. I just keep stepping up. I keep stepping up and I keep starting something new with them, knowing it's not working for them. And I've done that. I've done that at conferences. I've done that at, I have to be careful because I don't want to give away where I've done it, because I feel like I've been to certain places year in and year out, and I do it every time. And it's like, I don't care at this moment that you're not interested in what I have to say. I'm talking anyway. Then there are other times where I may feel for the person, or I think I genuinely like them, but I can feel like there's no vibe with me. So it's like, I'm done talking now. You can go if you want. Or I do that. I'm going to go get something. I'm going to go over there now. Okay. And I just go. There's some, I think at a deep, deep level, it probably saddens me that I don't get along with people. But if I don't dig that deep, it's all good, because, I mean, how are we supposed to operate, right? Like, I'm not going to get along with everybody, and God knows they're not all going to get along with me. So, and there's no time, man. Where are we going to find the time to do this? Like, you said you went to EdCamp today. If I would have gone to EdCamp with you, guaranteed I would have run into people that hadn't wanted nothing to do with me. Probably didn't want to talk to me, or I say something within the first couple of minutes that rubs them the wrong way. I don't know. But I don't have time for that. I don't want to do that.
I love that. I think there's I'm loving the conversation. I think that we're really embracing, if this is the kintsugi episode, the accidental kintsugi. I really believe that I'm going to take it back to something that you said somewhere in the first 10 episodes. You said it so well about using our time wisely, and that was the amount of time I had to give to it. Now, by that measure, I will say that for me, human relationships don't necessarily have that timer on it, but I am aware of that moment where it's okay for us to part ways. I'm okay with that. I don't have the I don't have to have the repeated, okay, see you later. Are you good? We're good. We're good. Are we good? Okay. We're good, right? We're good. Okay. Talk to you next weekend. All right. Take care. Okay, good. Like, I don't have that process in me. I will do the have a good night. I know we're going to talk again. Take care of yourself and yours. Boom, gone. And what I love about this conversation is that I think that for me, that is the realness that I want to have in my relationships. That is the currency that I want to trade in there. It sort of speaks to a reliability. I think it's a very honest and upfront way to be with people. And I think it also in some ways is the necessity in relationships that you're not giving. I'm going to do this two different ways, that you're not entirely releasing your anonymity. Like, you're allowing yourself to get to know someone. So part of that process of getting to know someone from where I sit, and not, this isn't always the way it's brought to me from other people, but the way that I do it is that I don't necessarily put everything behind a vault door, but I'm also not leaving the door wide open for you to walk in either. Like, I'm bringing stuff out that is in the moment. I'm constantly, let's talk. Sure, we could talk about this. Sure. Like, I don't have necessarily topics. Even if I just met somebody, I don't have a list of topics that I would say, I won't talk about that with someone that I've just met in the first 10 minutes. But I am aware of some people that reveal everything right on the front end. And then sometimes you're left with nothing after there to talk about, because it's in the reveal. There's no pursuit of any discussion. Like, it's a reveal and then the door just closes. And I think for me, in getting to know people, I'm okay if someone gives a lot of themselves right away, but I tend to be a little bit more measured. I think in that, hey, how's your weekend? And me not asking those questions is I really don't want to share what I did on the weekend. Like, I don't want to speak to it. I'm okay with the bigger picture items to talk about, but I often, when I have some of the working relationships that I want to keep as working relationships, I don't often bring in the personal stuff. I make the moments working together as personable and fun as possible, and a story may pop out, but it's in relation to sort of like the task that we're working on. So I could have, like I said, there's individuals that will have worked with me in groups. Maybe this is similar to what you're talking about, and they would have they would say, yeah, he's kind of cold, like he's a hard worker, but I didn't really get a sense of him. My only counter to that is that I probably didn't get a sense of that person either. Like, there just wasn't a relationship that was started. So I had somebody one time accuse me of being British, which I don't know. I don't know what that means exactly, other than I think I've been called Kurt a few times, but they thought I was British because of my sarcastic sense of humor. Do you find me sarcastic? Am I sarcastic? Would you say that's one of my qualities from what you know about me? Am I a sarcastic guy?
No, it's not the first word I would use.
Okay.
But
Right.
The British thing, the pompous ass, I'd go for that.
You'd go for that. Yeah.
That's the second time now I've used a bad word on the podcast.
It's funny, because I don't know what words I'd use for you. If that's on the table, I don't know what I would put. I don't know what I would put there. I think
I'm kidding about the pompous ass, right?
Oh no, I'm okay with that. Even if you're not, yeah, I can totally take that, because
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. That is funny. Last week we talked about titles and what's in the name, right?
Hmm.
Can I transition? Can I push us in a way? You can.
Hold on. Before you transition, I got a good one for you.
Okay.
Hold the transition. Number one, what we're talking about right now, what would we call it? Because I have no idea what I'm putting in my notes here about this section of what I've got. EdCamp, Chris's experience, Kintsugi, and then what the hell are we going to call this? What are we doing here? What are we talking about? Are we talking about like relationships? Are we talking about Roland being on the spectrum? What is it? I don't know.
I think if you want to be, I don't know, man. We had a bit of a Bermuda Triangle in there. Maybe it's assumptions in relationships. I don't know. That doesn't come off the tongue well, doesn't it?
I'm gonna put relationships just because. Okay, sorry.
Relating to relationships. There's a nice
people.
Yeah, relating to people.
Okay, okay. You're gonna love this. So, you know what I've been experiencing lately? I've been experiencing when I was a new teacher, like in my first 4 or 5 years, there were much older teachers, more experienced, who were around me, who would always be like trying to teach me a lesson about like the craft, the profession. I'm now that guy. And I'm loving every minute of it, because when I'm talking to the newer teachers at school, they'll come in, they'll ask me a question, and I just drone on. And I know I'm droning, and I know, like, I can tell when they're done with me, but I'm just in like my glory, because nobody wants to talk to me all day. right? Nobody wants, when somebody asks me a question about teaching, I'm like, I just like the skies open up and the light shines down, and I just feel like this is awesome. I actually can say something here that I believe has some value. And so anyway, as you were talking about your piece there, I was thinking about how I enjoy talking to the newer teachers about the work we do, and it reminds me of when I was new and the veteran teachers would talk to me, and how sometimes I'm like, okay, this guy's got to stop talking now. Like, I got it about 7 minutes ago. I'm that guy now, and I'm kind of enjoying it, and I like to hear myself talk. So as I'm talking about my work to someone else and giving them suggestions on next steps or a different perspective, I'm actually learning myself. Like, I'm hearing it, and whether it sounds crazy or whether it's like a really good thing and I should do more of it now, even though like I know how to do it and when to do it. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. Feel free to transition now.
That's cool. That's cool. I think that I don't know if I've had that space. I've had that space a couple times. I think I've held court in it in much the same way you did. Like I come away after it. So I think about the times where we share information professionally where it's completely struggle free. And then at the end of whatever piece you share, you're like, holy crap, did I just say that? Like, did I just kind of like, that rolled off the tongue so easily. And sometimes it's stuff that you don't necessarily agree with. It just comes out fast. But the stuff that you think, I said that really well. And yeah, that is right. Like you're reinforcing your own good practice. It's good to hear. It's good to hear yourself in good stead in your pedagogy or in your philosophy, and for it to be declared out loud. I think that's a good thing. I have also found myself in that space where I'm realizing like, yeah, I think I made my point about 5 minutes ago, but I'm still really enjoying explaining it, and they haven't walked away yet, so they must be wanting to hear it. So I've had that happen too as well. I totally appreciate that. I didn't have anybody that really, when I came into teaching, I can't remember anyone that I felt shared any nuances or sort of insider scoops that that were of worth. The time when I came in, there wasn't a readily available mentor or someone that was willing to talk. There was a mention of don't go in the staff room. It's salted earth. Like you're not going to get any support there. And that was as supportive as it was. So the person telling me that's as good as the support went. Don't go to the staff room. Don't go to the staff room. I'm like, okay. And I thought I was about to ask this person, okay, who could I talk to? But I turn and they're gone. They're already walking down the hall. I'm like, well, where do I go then? I guess I'll go to my class and sit by myself. So yeah, it is nice to be able to share. I think it's nice to be sharing in a public space and to share with someone that we perceive may have value. They value that information. The transition, I wanted to, before we blasted through the time, I want to share another bit from my ASL class to this end. And it's a little bit of a riff on last week talking about what's in a name. It's a little bit on, so that was the whole, are you an educator, a facilitator, a co-learner, guide on the side, whatever your flavor is. So this past week, I've mentioned a couple of times the challenges that I'm having with this learning. I'm at the part where I've accepted it's necessary for me to go through this process, because in my EDU world, I have come to firmly believe, here's the depth of my mania. I've come to firmly believe that there isn't a course that I can't teach. Because in my alt-ed context, I've been confronted with the constant bombardment of here's another kid, here's another course, here's another kid, here's another course. My learning experience since doing alt-ed and my current programming with students that are on suspension expulsion, it is so kaleidoscopic. I have experiences that I'm not even sure are mine. Like it's just you know, my training as being a chef and having the tech training, but also my guidance in spec ed and my curious mind has been my total basket to carry all these things in. So with that belief system that I should be able to learn a course, I should be able to do this learning, I should be able to do any learning if I put my mind to it, has completely been tested in this ASL course. There's a lot of reasons for it. Don't have the time now to sort of go into that, but just suffice it to say, my rule book isn't working. And I'm constantly aware of, in the scope of the learning and in the trajectory of the class. So I think it's 12 classes long. I think it's 12 sessions. I think we just did our 7th session. It's either 12 or 10, 3 hours every time. It's intense from 6 to 9. So it's placed at a, you know, a little bit of a sleepy time in what would be my learning cycle. I'm constantly aware of my movement to the back of the herd. I think I started out okay, a little bit at the front of the pack. I kind of moved to mid pack, and then I find myself in the scope of the time moving to the edge of the pack, and I'm hoping just to be able to stay inside that pack, aka pass the course, and still be in that space by the end. But I'm running out of steam in this marathon. It's not going to change my intention though. I'm sticking it out. Okay, so that's just my context. Last week, for the first time, I decided to get out and stretch my legs on the break. Most times I sit and I review my notes. I practice my signing. I try and have a conversation with the instructor. I try to have a ASL conversation with the instructor, and I stay at my desk. This time I decided to go for a walk. Now, where this course is taking place is in a small strip mall, so you can kind of go out, walk out the front door. It's the Canadian Hearing Society, that it's actually a storefront that they have the ASL classes right inside of there. So as I walk out, I just walk out to the sidewalk, kind of stretch, do a little bit of like, you know, a little bit go noodle with myself. And then I should actually reframe that. When I say go noodle with myself, that's a website for exercise and daily physical activity, folks. Anyone that is not aware of what go noodle is, I'm not doing something strange. So as I'm walking back, I come inside the office again, and I can hear people talking. Now, in the front foyer, from the moment that you walk into the class, it's voices off. There is no talking for 3 hours. 3 hours. So that so far has been, you know, 21 hours of being in a space with no talking. And depending on the order, and I tend to get there at the front end, so I'm kind of in the class with the first couple people. So I'm already in the space of silence for the most part when other people come in. So as I'm walking back in the front lobby, that's where our instructor has said, you can talk over there, okay? But you don't talk in the class and no phones in the class. As I'm coming in, I can hear a collection of voices. The voices, I have not heard, I don't know what people's voices sound like. So as I'm walking up, I can't say, hey, that's Roland. Hey, that's so-and-so. I can't triangulate at all who's talking. Now, I'm going to backtrack to a different experience. One of the individuals in this class, I think, has taken some classes before or has to use it actively in his context. And his grammar and his facial, I'm going to say like his facial characterizing and his flow with his ASL is really good. It is very good. To watch him, you're engaged, it's animated. Like there's a whole body energy that you have to use in relation to the actual signing. Because if you don't do it, it's a little bit like someone talking like this. You're coming off as robotic. So the body dramatizes. The body dramatizes the wording. So what you and I would do with tone, you do entirely with body body movement, facial expression, and positioning, three-dimensional positioning of your hand, and that all gives emphasis to your language. So in watching him, I'm like, this dude is like, he's off the hook. He's entertaining. He's energizing. This is like cool. And I feel a deep connection. I'm walking in, I hear the voices. And as I walk in, I hear his voice for the first time. The first time in 21 hours. I've been getting to know this person for 21 hours so far. I hear his voice and my mind can't agree with what I'm hearing. My mind is saying that can't be his voice. That can't be the sound that matches up to what I know about that person. And I had this kind of mind-blowing moment about my own bias and my own assumptions about people and how reliant I am on understanding my environment through voice, understanding my environment through sound. And I was bothered by that more than anything because I had built something that was so fragile, my understanding, my acceptance, my reliance on who this person was based on my criteria that I experienced in that classroom. And then my brain couldn't accept that that was the sound of his voice. Now, this is a simple thing. On one hand, I can say, well, Clough, get your act together. That's his voice. Deal with it. But it's really been sticking with me as far as why couldn't my brain accept that? And where is it that I might make that mistake in a far more dire situation where the little bits that I have used to get to know somebody isn't the full picture? And it made me really reflective this past week, as in, where are those spaces where I'm filling in the blanks a little too much? Because it was profound, Roland, it was profound. I could not, it was, you know, those moments, you've seen the videos on TV where dude puts on some sort of glasses that get him to see color for the first time, or the mother who puts in the hearing aid and hears her baby cry for the first time. It was like that, except towards the negative. It was that moment, but towards the negative, because my brain wasn't accepting the information that was in front of me. It was denying me that pleasure of hearing somebody's voice for the full time, for the first time. And that's a really, I don't know what to do with that, apart from just, Clough, you got to work this one out. Like, don't carry it. Like, there's no burden to this, but it really made me examine my biases, and it made me examine the assumptions that I use in order to create a persona around the person. Still think the guy's animated, still love watching him sign, but I'm still thinking about him like, that voice, that can't be his voice. That's not the voice I gave him. Oh, there it is. There's the line. That's not the voice I gave him. So if I make that about my practice, about my teaching, about my children, there's the line. That's not the voice I gave you. So.
Incredible. That's listening to you talk about it.
Think about the last times. When was the last time you went, and there's no brag here, but just, I'll use the number. When was the last time? And I don't think I think it's 18 hours. I think we did class 6. Now that I'm thinking, I think it's a 10 class. So we just did class 6. When was the last time you went 18 hours around someone, intentionally interacting? It's almost impossible, except in this context, because you would start to say words. But the nature of this class, we're not. We're not. I spent 18 hours with this dude. And there was something about, like, my brain, I felt betrayed. Like, it was just, like I said, like that hearing your baby cry for the first time, except the dark side of that. It'd be the equivalent of hearing your baby cry for the first time and you realize that your baby barks. It's like, what? Right?
You are learning so much more than ASL at this course. It's probably killing you a little bit that you're going for one particular reason.
Can it not just be about the signs, Roland? Can it not just be about the... It's not. Dude, it's not. And I think I already mentioned once, like, half the time I think to myself as the instructor, she just must think I'm crazy. Like look at, like, you think about just the babbling that she might watch going on in the class. She's just like, they don't even know what they said just now. They don't even know. They think, and look at them. They're still talking to one another. Like, no one just said that your head is like an apple, and yes, your mother has, you know, something insulting. They're just going along. I sort of look over at her sometimes and she's laughing. And I know it because it's the babble, finger spelling or whatever signing that we're doing. She's just like, these people are nuts.
I don't want to take away from the enlightenment that you've experienced with respect to this course and you giving someone a voice and then hearing it and feeling betrayed by yourself. Like, you betrayed yourself. But I have to ask these two questions, and you probably already answered the first one. why did you decide to take an ASL course? What was it that you're like, I want to do this, I'm doing this? Was it the completely different type of learning that you'd engage in, or is there something deeper? Or
Yeah, okay, no, there's so the starting point, and this is how simple simple things can kind of become really complex really fast. So last year, I said to my colleague, we should learn some basic ASL so that we can have clear queuing systems in our environment to speak to one another. Because we don't have an office away from the kids, we often have to gesture or use safe words to create motion and direction. You know, if we know a kid might be triggered, but you don't want to say it out loud, or if we receive a phone call, like it's that whole, you know, your parents talking us when they know that you can, like my parents used to do this. My spouse and I've done this. Like you spell around the children, and then you're like, oh, damn it, they've become literate. Now they can spell. And it's like, oh, we can't do that anymore. You know, my wife and I was like, should we learn another language just so we can sort of speak around them? So it's a little bit like that, so that we can exist in code in the space. And something like we had said, you know, ASL would be a valuable way to be able to communicate, because it is a specific standardized approach to language, and really to learn another language, no harm there, right? So that was kind of the starting point. I noticed somehow, and maybe this is how the cloud brings stuff to you, that there was a course being offered, and it's quite literally a 5-minute walk from where I work, and it's only like a 10-minute, because I live close to work, like a 10-minute drive. So the convenience factor popped up. And then the final part is I had enough money to take it, like to sort of take this course. So that's the starting point. That was all the very simple things that came together. And for me, it doesn't take much more than that for me to say, I'm going to give it a shot. I'll go for it. Sure. This is enough of the universe saying, go for it, Clough, right? More walk, less talk. So what's the second question?
The second question is, in your work, teaching suspended and or expelled students, have you come across a student with special needs around hearing or vision? And if not, like, is there a place for them if they're not with you, if they were to be suspended or expelled?
The vision, low vision, that's an interesting one. So low vision or no vision, I've never directly worked with any student, even prior to my current work placement. In my current work placement, I haven't worked with anyone that was hard of hearing or deaf. No. When I was at my previous school in Spec Ed, on 2 occasions, there were students with cochlear implants that I would wear a microphone, like a digital microphone that would be piped right in. So that's a previous experience. I don't know. I would never say like somehow that was sitting in the back of my mind as a kind of like something that compelled me or motivated me to do that. I think it was it was more pragmatic that I came at this, and the accessibility. It was the convenience made it happen. So
thanks for answering my questions. It's kind of cool in the work that you do. I wonder if you come across, well, because you come across, I don't want to stereotype and say you come across one type of student in the work you do. That's not fair. Anyway, so I thought I'd ask. I thought that was cool. Yeah, it blows me away, the learning and the reflection you're engaging in with this ASL course, and the deepest things you're getting into have nothing to do with the ASL course. Like it's all about your journey and how you're working through it, learning something, dealing with something completely new. It's just kind of cool that it's also something that could be very helpful to you in life. Wow. Do you mind me asking how much it costs, this type of course?
it's
Like we talking hundreds?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the first one, I think it cost me 300. It
Okay.
was the larger piece of it was for the actual the book, so the workbook resource, but the workbook resource is used for both part 1 and part 2. So there's six chapters in the book. The first 3 are the first session, like the first level, and then the second 3 are used in the next level.
So
so I don't pay. I don't have to pay again. Just I think the actual course just in itself. I forget the differentiation. I think it was 190 for the course and 130 for the textbook. So yeah, the next time it'll cost me just the 190 if I decide to take the next one.
So there's part 2. Oh, I think you'll be taking it. I have a feeling you will. I have a feeling that once you, like all things equal, if you've got the cash, I think you're going to do it, because I think you're looking to grow more from this. I mean, you know, if your partner's good with it and you got the cash and the time, because even though I see the anguish in your face when you talk about the struggle, I don't get the vibe that it's a negative thing. I get the vibe that my analysis is that you're craving this type of struggle because it's a positive struggle. It's breaking you in a way that's going to make you, you know, a 10 times better person when you repair your broken parts because of this.
Look at you.
That's
Kintsugi all right up to the end.
You're killing me. I feel
okay
like eating sushi right now.
Yeah, I'm all good with talking about it too. I think and it's funny. My process in this is that, well, one, on some levels, I'm starting to realize that I'm now more and more. I'm aware. So it's funny. I'm often at school when I'm in class. I'm practicing while I'm talking to kids, and I have to. Right now it's actually I'm keeping my hands down because there's things that I should be so that's practice. So if you go back to previous and you see me doing, you know, practice and you know, that's hard. It's difficult. ASL is difficult. I'm of two minds as to whether or not to move forward with the learning. Because one of the things is whether or not I have to take the first course over again. So that's a totally different, right? And the other part is I'm so stoked to talk about what is kind of broken, what I feel is broken, what my lived experience in this is broken, because in going into professional spaces, I don't know if that discussion is fully fleshed out. What is the thing that's, you know, like we can sort of offload these moments in PD where we say this PD isn't for me, but if we really personalize and say, why is it I'm not connecting with this PD? All of a sudden you're confronted with maybe something that you're missing. Maybe there's something that you are doing as the employee. Like it is actually you. You're not stepping up enough. So I have this professional mind about this of, you're right, the exploration of me trying to figure out what's missing from my toolbox has been an obsession. So there is that element. I really dig. I like the craft of it, though. I do enjoy communicating this way. I think it's given me a lot. In the suffering, it's given me a lot back. So, and sort of realizing what I've had to put in, it's given me something back, but it's not coming back to me the same way I'm putting it out there. And I'm being forced to learn in a different way that, like I said, at the beginning of this, my assumption was that I could learn anything. And that's not as true as I would have, my ego would have believed at the beginning of this. So I think that's a good place for a teacher to be.
Right on. Well, keep up the hard work, keep working on it all. And I don't know what else to say. I said my piece. I made my prediction, and I didn't even consider that you might have to take part 1 again, but that maybe is a reality for you. I don't know. Right. Like everybody's got their thing. I love it when people do what I just did to you, where you tell something, they tell you, no, man, you can do it. I think you can do it because of this and this reason. And I'm like, well, you're not in my head, so you don't really know what's going on up there. But I appreciate you humoring me, Clough, as I talk about my predictions with you and your ASL course.
There were good laughs. I think we hit a laugh track tonight. I think there was something. I don't think we didn't mute the mics as much.
No, we didn't. I think something about this Saturday night left us a little bit more like risk taking and just like messing with the system, like talking about rambling on and whatever. But I know from my notes that I can safely say that episode 25 was about EdCamp, your experience, kintsugi,
yep,
and relating to people, and more talk about your ASL course. So that's kind of what the flavor of episode 25. And it's got
all good.
It's all good. So this is where we end things, because you're gonna have to get up tomorrow and go back to EdCamp, right?
No.
It was just only one day.
Just the one day. Tomorrow is getting up and taking the boy to. They have beavers. They made beaver buggies, so there's a car race rally that we're going to, where he gets to race his car. So that'll be the morning. Well,
yeah. I'll drop for all our listeners, the one or two of them, that I might actually get to see you in real life.
I'm totally. Maybe two times. Maybe two times.
Oh, right. Maybe two times.
But hopefully over March break, and then maybe at maybe sometime around the EdTech Summit. Maybe. That's confirmed, eh? I get to do a session. It's confirmed.
Right on. I'm happy to hear that. And it also, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, you may see me at the EdTech Summit digitally.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, so I can tell you more about that later, but you won't see me. You won't see me in real life at the summit, but digitally you may catch me.
Okay.
Okay, so that's for
the off ramp. Save that one for the off ramp.
Sure. Okay. See you,
man.